of your own fortunes, gentlemen. The deepest circle of hell is reserved for betrayers and mutineers.
Inspired by Disney's Pirates of the Caribbean, set sometime after the Rime of the Ancient Mariner by Samuel Taylor Coleridge. Of waters blue, of waters green, of depths unknown and core unseen, employ the mysteries of the deep. What lies below is yours to reap, but what is there to have to glean of murky climes and souls unclean? Go forth and seek, so beckoned he, to venture down beneath the sea, beyond the wreck, beyond the freight, where hapless sailors met their fate. The deepest depths are my decree, go forth and toil to set it free. And so they lined the musky keel, these lowly folk who sought a deal, poor and reckless, feckless kind, whose poverty enthused to find whatever they could loot or steal, a daring scheme to fleece a meal. So Captain eyed this fruitless pack, and eager, poised, they eyed him back. So men, in rapturous tones cried he, so men of fortune you all shall be, to plot, to scheme, to plan attack, into the gloom, into the black. And so incensed with oafish glee, the mob of 9 did thus agree, and with their pittance worth of wares, abandoned heart, discarded cares, yet earth would sooner set them free to sell their souls unto the sea.
The morning star shall grant consent, will leave at dawn at his intent, said Captain to his rowdy men, whose totaled crew comprised of 10. Indeed the kindly star had sent a good west wind, and off they went. From south along the wayward shore the wind held high, and sunlight bore on cliffs that arched across the cove, dividing as the helmsman drove this vessel that had ne'er before entered through this ocean door. Now east along the cliffs of white, until the land was out of sight, sun's rays dappled on the swell as dancing waves served to propel. She dazzled in the morning light, now seaward bound, and all was bright. Good grace the crew in winsome mode embraced their watery new abode. They drained the keg and drank the rum, they flew the flag and beat the drum. What merriment it surely showed, that nothing ill they could forebode. As calm still waters swirled around, the night crept in without a sound. Now weary from their merry feast, the deck was still, the music ceased, and softly did the waves resound, while surging from their watery ground. The ship rose up, 'twas day anew, her haughty bow cut proudly through the dormant sea, whose depths were stirred. Alas, a wrath was duly spurred, a force that slowly, slowly grew amid that great expanse of blue. And as that wrath began to grow, the haughty ship began to slow. So fraught were they, and restless too, moved only by the wind that blew. But when that wind refused to blow, her square-rigged sails slacked down low. Alas, the sea, her mighty will, more deadly yet when she was still, and seamen groaned, their throats were dry, the fiery sun beat from the sky, nor captain with his ocean skill could move his ship amid the spill. Aboard that deck so parched and sere, there was a hoary buccaneer. Between the sun with its fiery rays, and ancient eyes that burnt and blazed, a shadow gliding by mast high was captured in a glittering eye. Through the lens of his flashing eye, he fixed his gaze onto the sky. Betwixt the deck, the mast and skies, the mariner dropped down mesmerized. And as he dropped, dry boards did creak. The crew looked on, would they dare speak? Yet faster than his senses fled, were they returned on wings of dread. Avast, cried he, beware, beware, I bring aboard my cross to bear. His yellow eyes did burn and flare. The cursed black spot is there, is there. He thrust his hand out in the air. They gasped, aghast, despair, despair.
So there is a curse. That's interesting.
Have mercy, men, his hollow plea. I am an old man of the sea, and now the time my soul to sell, my sins too terrible to tell. In wrathful fright that fail to see, they cast their thoughts to mutiny. Though impotent their wrath to prove, their bitterness they could not soothe. In this great void it had been shown, they were alone, so all alone. For life nor death could mere mortals move, or cursed black spots could mortal men remove.
You know nothing of hell.
So days to night still all adrift, the wretched curse refused to lift. A glassy haze stretched overhead, and sank below the dank sea bed. Bright strikes of skylight marked the shift, black clouds rushed in, and it was swift. The rain came pouring from the skies, the stagnant sea began to rise, and joy, behold, it was such bliss to quench dry souls with heaven's kiss. But joy rolled in cruel disguise, and burnt and flared through yellow eyes. And there he stood upon the mast, with eyes that flickered in the blast. With flailing arms held high he raged, now like a prisoner uncaged. Unleashed, unbound, the mariner wailed, through lands I've traipsed, on seas I've sailed, but still it stalks me, ghostly foe, that creature shot by my crossbow. And my decrepit life won't cease, let death in life be my release. I shall retell my tale no more, take me downwards to earth's core. So began a great commotion, that bubbled like a witch's potion, and swirled and whirled and opened wide, in vast and round and circular motion, and sucked them down as they all cried, whose hand unplugs the ocean? For she went down and round, it coaxed her nearer pound by pound, and whipped her hull and slapped her deck, down and side to side. It spurned and turned and opened wide, and beat her downwards with the tide, and stripped her bare and beat her deck. The haughty ship dropped down a wreck. And they clung on in desperate plea against the wrath of that cruel sea, poor mortal men against the might, now dark, so dark, devoid of light. What chances now have they to flee from this tempestuous entity? Then came a summon from the sky, the ship dropped downward from up high, and all at once the motion ceased, for calm had come to quell the beast. But met with unbelieving sighs, it pierced the dark with flashing eyes. Now darkness shrouded one and all, and echoes bounded off a wall, For deep, deep down in this abyss, the wretched curse would still persist. For round the corner, what was more, blazed the fires of earth's core. Through mystic caverns dark and wide, deep darkened seas did not subside, and Captain with his rowdy men were ghostly silent, for that was then. Now pale and lost in spectral stride, a skeletal ship did softly glide, and onwards, downwards with us tilt, towards the dagger, blade and hilt, where fires leap and lava flies, and flames burn red in demons' eyes. That mariner drives devoid of guilt to that damned place the devil built. For here the waters stir below, and boil and bubble and quickly slow, and through the dark the floor glints red, as seas transform to molten lead, and shadows jump and come and go, and reflect the light with crimson glow.
And so they came to earth's dark core. Had they expected something more? Would treasure troves and coins of gold be their great bounty to behold? So joyful,
Not all treasure is silver and gold, mate.
no longer feckless, weak and poor. But so it was by weak decree, they'd led themselves so greedily. Entrapped inside the bowels of earth, this fruitless kind observed their worth, and spoke the truth explicitly. We are the scum of land and sea. But he who had much more to fear, that haggard, hoary buccaneer, though scripted by another pen, his sins cannot be told again. And fate emerged, so it was clear, his final breath was drawing near. The end came quick as he was flung, one fiery swoop and he was slung. From out the ship his being plucked, and by the flames his lifeblood sucked. For those who saw it, how it stung, it burnt the eyes and scorched the tongue. But now the ghastly fray recedes, for hell has taken what it needs. And as the curse begins to lift, once more its core begins to shift, the molten flow beneath them leads, that broken ship it now proceeds.
And so began the great ascent. Up and up and up they went. The surface neared, how it seethed. With melted rocks the rubble heaved. Towards the sky and through the vent were fiery fountain torrents sent. For as the pressure grew and grew, purged from the deep pot fragments flew. And with the thrust it cut its course, a magna river there did force. And from the crater it did spew a blighted ship and battered crew. Now it ran down the mountainside, meandering with mazy stride. It met with cooling streams and blended. Here the lava trail ended. The pure springs did now provide lush greenery spread far and wide. The ship it went at rapid pace, careering down that mountain face. And all at once the sparrows sang, then further down a church bell rang. Now could it be this route they trace returns them to a well-known place? To their horizon eyes were glued. It was a splendid thing they viewed, and in the distance all shone bright, that sheltered cove, those cliffs of white. No longer were this crew subdued, their tortured spirits now renewed. From passing through the harbour door, against cruel tides they reached the shore. Yet through the terror, pain and woe, did they have anything to show? Where were the coins, the gold, the store? Weren't they as hapless as before, with not a penny to their name? It is a thought who they might blame, yet strange to see that when on land it shook their captain by the hand.
Not all treasure is silver and gold, mate.
For these 8 men, they weren't the same. They'd sold their souls in search of fame.
Alone no riches did they find, they'd heed a lesson for mankind. For as they made it up the hill, the distant bells were ringing still. With moral conscience redefined, they left the harbour side behind. But they'd not known they'd had a spy who first had seen them from the sky, and on the mast his chosen perch, he watched them enter in the church. And when at last he took to flight, his yellow eyes flashed in the light, for as he stretched his wings to fly, he bid them well with glittering eye.
We shall need a crossbow. News to say I won't be for them, mate. Pirate's life for me. Savvy.